I've only been gone for 5 years, so maybe many of you know me, have met me, have a story for me. Want to rack my brain for me? No? Okay, I'll tell you what I can remember. I was born in Italy. I was born December 20th, 1911. And my parents took me to be an immigrant and settle in Sand Coulee, Montana. That's just south of Great Falls. My dad was an engineer and he was going to work in the mines there. I have 2 sisters, and being the oldest, I was a lifelong learner, and I was a perfectionist, and I was a model daughter. That means when I entered 1st grade, who was in my class? We had the Finns, we had the Slavics, and we had the Italians, and nobody knew English. So our teacher every day wrote a word up on the blackboard we had to say, we had to learn, and we had to define. So day by day by day, we learned the English language. I went home and taught my mother and my sisters. My father wasn't interested. He was Italian to the end. I graduated as valedictorian in 2029 in Sand Coulee. And of course I wanted to go on to the Montana State College here. And my dear parents made it happen. They shuffled their economics and paid for 4 years for me to study here. I studied mathematics and chemistry. And I lived in North Hall. Well, I met Mrs. Brantley. Brantley Hall hadn't been built yet, and she introduced me to Mr. and Mrs. Claps. He's the president of the college at that time. And I'm proud to tell you I knew 15 presidents, just missed the first 5. I'm only 112, give me a break. And how did I do that? I wanted to be a math professor. So I got my certificate in math and went back in 1933 to Sand Coulee, and I taught math. I taught it to high school students, but I also taught, well, they asked me to teach Latin, and they asked me to teach Spanish besides math. Well, just bring it on. I can learn anything because I have this sponge here. So I did all that for 4 years. I saved my money, and I came back to the university to get a master's in math because my goal is still to be professor in math at this college. I was very fortunate, and the first person I met was a math professor who was writing his book. Well, I helped him write his book. I edited it and I typed it. Oh, and I got to teach some of his classes. So I got my foot in the door and I thought, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be a professor of math. Well, World War II came along. And we had at the university cadets, Army cadets and Air Force cadets. So I taught them, of course, navigation. I taught them civil air, and I taught them all about the airplane. Oh, did I tell you I've never been on an airplane? Just throw it at me, I'll be proficient in anything. Well, I got a strong connection that way with the military. So when they came back on the GI Bill, I was their connection. So I got them all their classes. Oh, and I also marched with the Angel. They were the Air Force women, and we marched for 11 years. So I am Emma, and everyone knows me as Emma. Did I tell you about my husband? Oh, let me tell you, this is Tom. Tom is buried here, and I met him right after I got my master's. He was a veteran of World War I, and he was an engineer for the Forest Service, and he worked here all his life, so we got to live here. And he had a son, so I became a stepmother, and at that time, young Tom was only 14, and lo and behold, he did deliver me 4 grandchildren. So I did have a family. I had a wonderful husband, and he had my back, so I could give my heart and soul to the University of Montana, which is what I did for 40 years. I told you I was the register. I loved all the Grizz games, go Grizz, basketball, football, and I went to everything, and that's why I was well known. But I had this gift in my DNA to pass love, heart-to-heart love, and know everybody's name. So thousands and thousands of students knew me. I stood for love of the university, love of education, and love for the people who go there. And that's why they named it the Emma Lommasson Center. I want you to know that my ticket for living a long life is surround yourself with youth. They are hopeful and happy and full of new ideas, and get up every morning, know you're going to make it a better world. That's my ticket. Thank you very much. I am buried in Great Falls next to my parents. My grandchildren, bless their hearts, made that decision for me.